Yeah, how's it going, Grant?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Let me
How's
just grab my
your
iPad.
how's your ski trip?
Oh, it was good. I did get hurt on it though, which was not fun, but
I
it
feel
was
like that's
okay.
part of the course for skiing.
Yeah. I usually don't get hurt, but it was on the first day. It hit an ice chunk and went flying.
Can't really control that, to be honest. Like that's
Yeah.
difficult. So I sent you some questions. So I sent you like this practice prelim we're doing for pause for the
Okay.
other teacher. So we're gonna go over the first two questions, just kind of like review material. And then we'll try maybe do something on Friday. And then
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we do an hour today, maybe 2 hours on Friday, and then I'll give you a practice prelim on Friday to do. And we can
Okay.
figure out the details for that. But yeah, I'm just for like the next few days I can't do tutoring until Friday because there's a prelim for pause. So a lot of my other students are asking for tutoring. So
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
have like two of the kids after you today and three more tomorrow. So it's quite a bit. So yeah, let's try this ABC costing question. I'm going to share my screen. We'll get started.
Sorry, can you send it to me as a PDF? Whenever I get like Word docs, they always look like really weird on my iPad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. I mean, just so you know, you just convert them.
Oh, yeah. Here,
But
let me see if I can do that.
real quick. Let's see. Did you go home at all?
No. Couldn't. The ski trip was like the entire week.
Okay, just saved as a PDF. I'm sending it now. Sent it. Did you get it?
It'll probably come through in a sec. Yeah, I did.
Awesome. Some great stuff. And we're going to be looking at question 1 first.
Okay. The Bangor LLC one.
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is a very typical activity-based costing question. I'm going to pull up the PDF too. Let's see. I'm just making sure. I sent you all the Zoom recordings, right? Hopefully.
Let me log. I don't think so.
Okay,
I know
I'll
you've
double
sent
check
me-
after this.
I know you've sent me some, but you sent Zoom recording number 1. I see that one.
Oh, you know what I might do? I might just put them on a playlist to make it easier for you. I'll try and do that.
That works too.
But don't worry about it. We'll just focus
Okay,
on this.
okay.
So remember activity-based costing. So remember before we actually start the questions, what makes up so a unit cost, right? Oh, let me share my screen. Probably not.
Yeah. No. Sorry.
So a unit cost, right, is going to be
Mhm.
made up of direct material plus direct labor plus overhead. Okay. So whenever we're calculating activity-based costing, these are going to stay the same. Okay. Direct
Okay.
materials and direct labor are going to stay the same. The overhead is where things are going to get a little bit tricky, because for overhead, for traditional base costing, we're just going to have one allocated base. But for activity-based costing, we're going to have multiple allocated bases to help make our costing of the overhead more accurate per unit, right?
Mhm.
So that's the whole deal here. So in this question, what they want us to do is first find us the cost per unit for standard and super cool under the current job order costing system, which is the traditional based costing system. And then after that, they want us to do the activity based costing system and compare it. Okay. So what
Mhm.
we're going to do is let's give it a stab. Let's do the traditional costing system as standard. Traditional costing standard. Do you want to try and give it a stab? Or do you want me to go through the first one?
Yeah, I'd probably need to, after that
Refresher?
break, we need to go through it a little again.
So for traditional base costing, remember, we need to have direct
Mhm.
materials, direct labor, and overhead, right? So for standard, is going to be the direct materials that tell us is $56, right? For direct labor, it's going to be $90. And then overhead, they tell us that the overhead cost, total overhead cost is 3.2 million. And the total amount of hours worked was $50,000 or 50,000 hours, right?
Mhm.
So what we have to do is this is a total number and 50,000 hours is a total hour number, right? These are both totals. The thing is, for the standard unit, that is a per unit cost for a specific unit, right? So basically, we got to convert this total cost and total hours into a per unit cost for overhead. So when we divide the total overhead by the total hours, we're gonna get $64. And this is gonna be the cost per hour, right?
Okay.
The thing is, each unit has multiple hours, right? It says here that each unit has 3 hours of labor. So what we're going to do is going to add the 64 and multiply by 3 because each unit requires 3 hours of direct labor. And we're allocating these overhead costs by labor, which is why we're doing the 3 hours because each unit has 3 hours of labor.
Mhm.
So do you want to try super cool?
Sure.
Traditional costing. Super cool.
So for this one, would you do the I'm just looking at it. So it would be 84 plus 120.
84 plus 120. Yeah, so that's a good start. So that's our direct materials and direct labor, right?
Plus so if we had to take the 3.2 million again and divide it by would we have to divide it by something, or is it just, is that this?
50,000 is
that's-
the amount of, it's the total amount of labor hours.
Okay, so would it just be plus 64 times 4?
Yeah, because we're basing it
Okay.
off of labor hours, right? Because it tells
Yeah.
us here that we are applying overhead on the basis of direct labor hours, and it's 4 hours per unit, which is why we're multiplying 64 times 4. Yeah. And that's it. And of course, in a
Okay.
natural question, you'd add these up. But
Hmm.
do you want to add them up real quick? Tell me what they are.
Sure. Do you want me to do it for both of them?
Yeah, that'd be great.
First one is 338.
Okay.
Second one is 460.
So now let's do part 2. And part 2 is asking, what is the unit cost of standard? It's super cool using the new ABC costing system, right? So ABC costing, we're gonna do standard first. So standard unit cost, parentheses, ABC, okay?
Hmm.
So the first steps is pretty simple, right? It's just gonna be direct materials and direct labor are gonna stay the same with traditional and activity-based costing. The direct materials is gonna be $56, and the direct labor is gonna be $90, right? Now, the tricky thing is the overhead. And now what's gonna happen is our overhead is $3.2 million, but we have to break it up now to, we have to break up this $3.2 million into separate categories. So as you can see here, we broke up this 3.2 million into orders processing, machine processing, assembly, and product inspection, right? And the thing is that now we got to allocate these costs by a per unit basis for standard. So let's do the order processing one first. Let's try the order processing. So order processing. First, I am going to divide the 500,000, which is the total order processing cost for both divisions. I'm going to divide it by 500. That's going to give me $1,000. So this $1,000 is the per order process cost, right?
Okay.
And now we need to find the per unit cost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by 320. When I multiply this by 320, we get $320,000. And now when we went now with $320,000, now we have the cost of orders processed only for standard, right? So beforehand, we had costs for both divisions, but by dividing to find the per order process cost and multiplying by the numbers of orders processed, there should not be a dollar sign there. Now we have only the standard division cost for orders processed. And now to find the per unit basis, all we gotta do is divide this by 10,000. And that's gonna get us $32. And that's gonna be the per unit cost of order processing for the standard unit. So do you wanna try, and then we're gonna add this as part of the overhead. So do you wanna try doing that for the machine processing?
Sure. With the 1.6 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you do the 1.6 million divided by 40,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you get 40.
Yeah, $40.
Okay. Is that it?
So $40 is a per hour of machine, right?
Okay.
But what we need to find is the cost per unit for the
Okay.
machines for standard, right?
So would we take the 40 and multiply it by the number of units?
So yeah, so if we multiply by the number of units, which is what again?
Is this for standard?
Yeah.
Would that be 10,000 units?
So we multiply by 10,000, right? $40.
Yeah.
That'll be assuming that each unit of standard has one machine hour, right?
Okay.
But what we need to find is basically, what we have to do is find the total cost for just standard. And then we can divide by the number of units to find the per unit cost.
Okay.
So we have this $40, right? This is per
Mhm.
unit. And we know how many, or this is per hour. And we know how many hours standard has. It's 16,000.
Oh, okay. So multiply it by 16,000 first.
Yeah. Multiply by
Okay.
16,000. What do we get?
You get 640,000.
Yeah. And what is that again?
So the 640,000 would be the total amount of well, like how much was spent on the machine, like machine hours worked for
Yeah.
standard.
For standard, exactly.
Okay.
So
I'm
now we need to
figuring out how
find the
word
per
that.
unit cost. So how are we going to find the per unit cost?
So now would we divide that by 10,000?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what gets $64.
So then you'd add that up at the top. Okay. So would we have to do this now for like assembly too?
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that, we'd have to do it for inspection.
Yes, because there's four categories.
Yeah. So how would we do this for assembly? Is this like machine hours again? Just
So
kinda-
see what what assembly is based off of. It says in the question.
Let me go through it again. Oh, assembly costs are driven by the number of labor hours worked. Okay.
Mhm.
So would that be so would we have to find that number? Or is that just the 16,000 again?
So we define 16,000. That's machine hours. We need labor hours though here, right?
Oh, labor hours. Is that the 3 hours at $30 an hour? Is that where that is?
So
I'm just kind of confused with this one.
yeah. So this one needs a little bit of like critical thinking, right? So we
Yeah.
know that for standard, so for assembly, for assembly, the cost is $800,000, right? The total cost, right?
Mhm.
But we need a total amount of hours. And they give us for standard and super cool, the amount of hours per unit, right?
Mhm.
So therefore, couldn't we find the total amount of hours?
Yeah.
So tell me how we would do that.
So you want to find the just the is this like the total amount of hours worked? Is that like what we're trying to find here?
For labor, yes, because
Yeah,
assembly
okay.
is based off of labor here.
So would you take the 3 hours and let me see. Would it be like the 3 times
Take your time.
does this have anything to do with the 50,000 hours
50,000.
at the top?
Yeah, that works actually. You can use that.
The 3 times 50,000.
Yeah, so that's labor hours, right? That's the total amount of
Mhm.
labor hours. So that would
Yeah.
work. So I actually
Okay.
didn't think of that. I completely forgot about the 50,000 hours. The way I thought about it is, and you actually thought about it easier. That was an easier
Mhm.
way. So props to you, because I've done this question 3 times. I did not even see that. But basically what I did was I would multiply 3 times 10,000, right?
Mhm.
Plus 4 times 5,000.
Okay.
Because 3 times 10,000 is the total amount of hours for standard, and 4 times 5,000 is the total amount of hours for super cool. And therefore, if you add those two up, you get the total amount of hours, which is 50,000.
Oh wait, so you wouldn't even have to like do anything? They just give it to you?
Yeah, they gave you, it was 50,000. I just
Oh,
like
you
thought
just
about
did-
it a different way, right? Which, you know,
Okay.
in a lot of managerial accounting questions, there's always multiple ways of doing things.
So
You
would this
know?
just be the 800,000 divided by 50,000?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
What does that give us?
$16.
Okay. And now what are we going to do with that 16?
Hmm.
What are we going to
The
do with that
16.
$16?
The 16. Let's see.
Remember, we have to find the assembly cost per standard unit.
Mhm.
And we know that assembly is based off of labor hours.
Okay.
And there's 2 ways of doing it. There's a hard way and an easy way.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, so the number that we just found, the 16, is the number of this is how much it costs per unit, like, or per hour?
Per labor
Yes,
hour.
per labor hour, okay.
Yeah.
That's a cost per labor hour. And we know the I'm just thinking.
So it's cost per labor hour. We need to find the cost
You-
per unit.
You multiply it by 19 or 90. Is that the
Well, we have the cost per hour. And that the direct labor cost of $9, that's another cost per hour.
oh, would you multiply it
wouldn't-
by
you wouldn't multiply
$30?
You wouldn't multiply 2 costs together.
Oh,
That's like
So
saying
you'd-
like
times 3 hours?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because it's 3 hours per unit, and we know
Yeah,
that
I was
the
just,
cost per hour is $16.
okay.
Excellent.
So 48.
Yep. And
Okay.
finally, let's do the inspection hours. So walk me through what to do for inspection.
So you take the 300,000 and divide it by the inspection hours. The 4,000 inspection hours for standard.
Why 4,000?
Wait. Oh wait, is this is it the 10,000?
Yeah, remember we're dividing a total cost. So
Oh
when you
yeah,
divide by total
I
cost-
completely forget this is the, I completely forgot that the inspection cost is the total inspection cost.
So divide by 10,000, we get $30. And what are we gonna do with that $30?
With the $30, we are going to inspection. I'm just thinking. Would you multiply that number that we just found times the 4,000?
Yes.
Okay,
And that gives us what number?
well, it would give us 120,000, which is is that the inspection cost? Like for standard?
Total inspection cost, yes. And then we have to find it per unit. So what are we gonna do to find it per unit?
So with the 120,000, we divide that by the number of units, which is 10,000. Okay. $12. Wait.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
okay.
$12. And basically what happened is this 32, 64, 48, and 12 is replacing that previous overhead cost we have with traditional or traditional base costing. Okay. We basically redid it by allocating our overhead costs into certain categories. So do you want to add these up real quick?
Tired. So we
Oh,
just
no,
add
you're
up
good.
all these numbers we just found.
Yeah.
So 156.
Yep. And then we've got to add our direct labor and direct materials.
Oh, plus the 90 and 56.
Mhm.
Okay. $302.
Exactly. So that is the new cost with ABC costing. Any questions about that?
Okay, I just gotta do this one more. It's kind of confusing for me.
Yeah, well, we can do a super cool now.
Yeah.
So we'll try super cool. Let me change the color of my pen to green. Okay. Super cool. So for ABC costing, what are we going to do here? For super cool.
Oh, we have the well, would the first thing we'd write would be the 84 plus 120.
Yep. Because those remain static.
Mhm. And then we'd find the order processing one first.
Orders processing one. Yep. Okay. So how are we going to do that?
So you'd take the 500,000 and divide it by the where is it? Would it be by the 500?
Yep. And that gets us
The 1,000. That's the same thing that we got from the last one.
yeah. Well, basically, we're just redoing it for practice.
Okay.
So we take this 1,000, and then what do we do with this $1,000?
So we multiply it by the 180 this time.
Okay. And that gets us what?
That would get us the 180,000, which is the set the 180,000 is that the total orders processed for super cool.
Yeah, the total orders process cost for super cool.
Okay.
Now remember, we need this by a per unit basis
Yeah.
for super cool.
So you divide it by the 5,000.
Yep, exactly. That's gonna get us what, $36?
36, yes.
Excellent. So next one, let's do machine hours.
Okay, so you take the where is it? The 1.6 million
Okay,
and divide it by the where is it? Would you have to just like before, so we divide it by the 40,000?
exactly. Mhm. So that's
Okay.
$40. Now what? Bless you.
Thank you. So after we get the 40 bucks, we get we multiply it by the 24,000.
Yep. That gets us
Just 960,000.
Mhm.
And then we would, so the 960,000 is the total cost of the machine hours worked for super cool.
Yep.
Okay, and you said, and then we would have to find it per unit again, so you divide it by 5,000. Which is 192. And that's the answer for that one. So now we're doing assembly again.
Yeah, so try doing assembly and product inspection. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
Okay. For assembly, I got $64.
Okay.
And for inspection, I got $72.
And so what is the total cost for super cool then?
Let me do that. $532.
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions about that?
Oh,
Okay. And the third question asks, is the super cool product undercosted or overcosted by the traditional costing system. Explain why you think this happened. Be brief.
Um, So is the super cool product undercosted or overcosted? Would it be undercosted by the traditional system?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just seeing, so like when you're actually analyzing this, if the ABC costing number for it is higher, and the other one is lower, is that how you like determine that?
yeah. So it's undercosted because, I mean, this will be on video, so I'm not going to write it down, but it's undercosted because when we use ABC costing and we more accurately allocated our overhead costs, the actual cost of the product was higher than using the traditional method, which is not as accurate. So it's kind of like, selling the Xbox Series X for $300 because we use this, this costing method. But in reality, it costed us more like $400 to produce, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't realize that because we weren't allocating our costs correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it.
Okay.
And then part D says the information given the problem states that the controller independently identify the cost pools and allocated costs associated with the pool. We discussed several times during class, which suggests this might be a bad idea for the company. Identify and briefly discuss one of those reasons and give two suggestions related to how the controller can ensure that ABC cost data is accurate and useful for design for decision making. So basically, the whole gist of this question is just know that when you are separating your costs and the activities associated with those costs, make sure they're related, right? So for example, your machine costs shouldn't be allocated by janitor hours, right? That's going to be a completely inaccurate measurement. Like machine hours or machine costs should be allocated by machine hours. Labor costs should be allocated by labor hours. Orders processed costs should be allocated by numbers of orders. That's basically it for that.
Mhm.
All right, cool. So let's give question number 2 a try now. Problem 2, cash budgeting problem. We're trying to do half of it at least. For this second question, we're trying to do at least half of it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan at least.
Okay, I read through the problem.
Cool. So for part 1, they want us to prepare a cash collections budget for January through March. And we did one of these questions a while back, but we didn't do that many. So cash collections basically means, money you're physically collecting, right? Because for example, when you go to Terrace and you buy a burrito, right, and you're using, a credit card,
Yeah.
Terrace is not receiving that money immediately. they have to wait for the vendor to actually pay them, the credit card vendor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we got to prepare a cash collections budget to really see how much money are we collecting per month. Because we're not collecting all the revenue per month, right? Some of it might be paid later, and some of it we might not get at all. The person who bought, stuff from us defaults in their loans and they can't pay it. We're just never going to see that money ever again,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the whole gist of a cash collections budget. And they want us to do it for January, February, and March. So let's do January first. And how do you think we're going to start with January?
Oh, do you start with the revenue?
Yes, but
Okay.
how are we going to use that revenue to find the actual cash collections?
I'm just looking at the problem. Is that little he put like a little chart on it? Is that like, are you supposed to like fill that in while doing the question?
You can. You only really need it for part 3, though. So
Okay,
don't worry
okay.
about it for parts 1 and 2. And the information the question gives you clues about it.
Yeah. I'm just kind of lost with this.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more hint.
Yeah.
Look at the first bullet point. Very careful.
Mm-hmm. Is it, is it the 60 or the 35% are collected in the following month? Is that
That's
the
part of
important
it.
part? Yeah.
So for January, right? Oh, do you
Yeah.
know what accounts receivable is?
No.
So accounts receivable is basically money that we've made, but we have not collected the cash for it, right?
Okay.
And they tell us that, or let's do this one step at a time. So all
Mhm.
sales are on account. 60% of customer accounts are collected in the month of the sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means for every dollar we're making in January, we're going to be collecting 60 cents of that immediately, right? So that
Okay.
$150,000 we made in January, we are going to be collecting 60% of it immediately, right? So that's the first part.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that we collect 35% in the following month, right? So that means that 35% of January sales won't be collected until February.
Okay.
And therefore, if you think about it critically, you think that, okay, for December, right? And for the December sales, 35% of it we'll be collecting in January, right? However, they don't give us December sales. And the only thing they tell us about December is that 20% of the accounts outstanding December 31st, 2010 will be recovered in January. And that's it, right? So basically, we're just going to ignore that 35% figure and just pay attention to the figure that's saying that 20% of the accounts outstanding December 31st will be collected and the rest will be void. So we multiply 0.2 times 55,000, which is the accounts receivable. So basically, right here, this is December, and these are January sales. Or
Does
January
that say
cash.
85,000?
Oh, 55,000.
Oh, 55,000. Okay, sorry, it looked like 85,000.
I know, my handwriting is terrible on these. Like,
Oh yeah, you have to use like
Backwards.
some weird things. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm using this
understandable.
right here. I don't know if you have one of these, but yeah. I think I bought it just for TA last year. Okay. So that's it for January.
So let's say 101,000.
Yeah.
So now we'd have to do February.
So what are we gonna do for February?
So you start off with the 180,000.
Yes. And then what?
And it says. So you multiply that by 0.6 again.
Because we only collect
Yeah.
60% of it immediately.
Okay, and then you do plus, so 35% are collected in the following month. So would you have to do the 180,000 times 0.35 next?
So that's not being collected until March, right? 35% is
Oh,
being
yeah,
collected in
yeah.
the following month,
Okay.
but you're in the right track. What are we gonna use that 35% for?
The 150,000.
Yeah, because we're collecting
Okay.
35% in the following month for January. So that January sale is
So
35%
this-
not collected till February.
So this would be plus 150,000 times 0.35. Is that it? Or,
Yeah.
okay,
And what's the answer there?
let me just multiply it. $160,500.
And let's try March now.
Okay. So for March, you do the 185,000 times 0.6. Plus the 180,000 times 0.35. Is that it? Or is there another
So
step
remember,
for this
so
one?
I'm gonna give you a hint. So remember, we're physically collecting cash, right? These are things we're physically collecting, right? Look at the chart they give us and see if we can add anything else from March.
Proceeds from sales of equipment.
Because we're actually collecting
So-
cash for that.
So would you
right?
just add the 5,000 onto the
Yeah.
top of this number? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you have to multiply that by, it's just 5,000.
No,
'Cause it's
unless they
cash,
told
right?
you, if they told you like, oh, we only get 80% of the proceeds of sale of equipment in
Oh,
the first
okay,
month,
then you'd have to,
multiply it. But because they don't give,
Okay.
give us any information, we just assume like, okay, we're collecting it all immediately.
$179,000.
Yep.
Okay.
So do you understand? So basically this whole question is just talking about cash flows and how to collect them. And it's really distinguishing the difference between making revenue and actually collecting the cash, right? Because like it's kind of like with like me and you, right? It's like even though I'm tutoring you today, right? I'm not making the cash collection for today. It's probably going to be zero, right? I'm not physically collecting the cash. I'm not physically collecting the cash until it's in my Venmo account, right? So theoretically, we can make a whole different question of this
with my tutoring and Venmo, right?
Mhm.
Because for one day I can tutor and make $800, but in reality, my cash collections is only going to be $400. I'm not going to collect the other 400 for the next 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And that's basically the gist of this question. Knowing that difference, knowing the difference between collecting that physical cash and getting and making the revenue.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll end
Okay.
it today there. I'm gonna stop the